Everybody ready? Jet looked at Rosie and Chubb in turn. You've had the antidote? Rosie just nodded. He looked at Chubb. Yup, he replied, patting the backpack, and I have repeat doses in case we're here longer than expected. Then let's go. Jet activated the airlock. It would have been a very nice place to live, but that was before the air became so polluted that living was impossible, at least without medication. The air smelled of cut vegetation. Jet could almost taste it, and he had to force himself to stop. Breathing in more air than you had to wasn't a good thing. All along what was once had been a fine boulevard were spacecraft, big and small, sleek and the total opposite. They were from everywhere. In fact, Jet couldn't remember seeing so many in one place, except for the occasional inauguration he had been forced to endure. Looks like word got around. Some really special stuff up for auction, Jet, said Chubb with excitement in his voice. Rosie was baffled. Why would anyone come all this way for a load of junk that nobody can use anymore? Chubb looked at her in disdain. Rosie, it ain't junk, they are rare and unique automobiles. She didn't see them in the same way. That you can't use. No, Chubb conceded. But you can't use a painting on a wall either, and that don't stop people visiting art galleries. Paintings don't pollute planets. Chubb couldn't argue that, so he didn't. We should go and register? Jet nodded. They said the stadium. He looked at the huge round building in front of them. I guess that's it. They could see other people making their way towards an entrance. They made their way towards it too. Beyond the boulevard they could see roads stretching into the dark canyons between the skyscrapers. They couldn't see far, but they could see that the vegetation had begun to reclaim the land that had existed before it became a city. Now trees grew from cracks in the pavement and vines grew up the walls. The sight reminded Jet too much of Verdant, excluding the buildings, and that there were no mushrooms. In fact, it wasn't the same at all, but it also reminded him that man can force nature to his way, but like ocean waves constantly rolling onto the shore, Mother Nature never ceased to try to take back what she owned, and here on Sutton IV she was winning. It seemed Rosie shared his thoughts. How long has this place been abandoned? About 5 generations, said Chubb. Jet didn't care. He looked at Chubb. You have the bid generator? Yup, it'll activate as soon as it's completed the logon. I feel superfluous. Jet auctions are frantic places. You could end up being carried away. Oh great, muttered Rosie, that's just what we want, a steam-powered tractor. There ain't no steam ones, Rosie. These are internal combustion. Same thing, ancient technology. Guys, chastised Jet. What we think isn't what we're here for. The machine makes the bids, we load up and get paid. No stress, no worry. Maybe not, Jet. There could be some serious bidding. We could go back with nothing. Jet looked concerned. You think that's possible? I don't know, he replied patiently. There are a lot of people who are prepared to pay a lot of credit for antique memorabilia. Jet sounded surprised. There are? Chubb nodded, but now Rosie looked concerned. You did think about that, didn't you? He hadn't. We get the base rate, at least he was kind of certain that was what he had agreed to. What you mean is that we came all this way for fuel money. Rosie looked not pleased. Jet pretended not to hear her. And a bonus if we deliver? But we can't deliver, Chubb pointed out. That's all up to the bid generator. Jet was looking uncomfortable. I was assured the client wanted what he was going to bid on. Rosie looked him curiously. But we don't know who he or she is. That ain't unusual, said Chubb. Lots of people don't want other people to know what they spend their credits on. Then what's the point of having something if nobody ever sees what you have? Rosie, showing off isn't everything. I'm not talking about showing off, but things of beauty are to be shared, assuming lumps of metal are things of beauty, she added sarcastically. Jet intervened now. He felt he had Chubb's support. Eye of the beholder, Rosie. Look, we've got a signal. An indicator light on the bid generator was flashing. So we've registered. Now what, Chubb? Our first item is number 3872. Bidding is at item 2185. We could be here a little while. Great. Rosie looked at the decrepit buildings that surrounded them. Then maybe to pass time you guys could take me out the best restaurant in town? Jet smiled. How about the canteen? Transport cafes. I've had my fill of transport cafes. Chubb winked at Jet. What's wrong with greasy food? She shook her head. Where do you want me to begin? Come on, Rosie. Chubb tried to look offended. I thought we treated you in pretty good style. She grunted in reply. Jet felt he'd try and pacify her, but she hadn't been the usual Rosie for a while. He was sure something was troubling her. I promise when we get back to civilization I'll take you somewhere nice. As was the case with transport cafes, the surroundings were garish and basic, but the food was plentiful and tasty, even if it was greasy. Jet put down his mug of tea and looked at Chubb. Much longer. Chubb checked the machine. 2653? So, Rosie said in less confrontational tone, indicating that the food had pacified her. What now, the theater? Jet smiled. I was thinking about a walk in the park. The park, you mean exploring the wilderness? It's actually recommended. I read up the visitor information. They have a circuit where you can observe how the parkland has reverted back to what it was. Rosie sighed. Great. Obviously the planet wasn't entirely uncared for, as the circuit was free of detritus. Discrete lights illuminated the gloom, and at places where the park authorities decided it was required were short image streams showing what was, what had become, and how. It used to be a quite beautiful place. Rosie said sadly. Jet agreed, but strangely Chubb thought otherwise. I don't know. I kind of like the way nature can never be beaten. It's like some massive organic machine that never lets go. Is this the same man who refused mushrooms on his plate a short while ago? Chubb smiled. And with good cause? Rosie smiled too. You'll tell us next that it takes a whole army of engineers to keep the place deliberately looking run down? Actually it does. Well, not an army, Chubb continued. They advertise for workers to clean up each time there's an auction. Rosie looked at him in disbelief. You mean people voluntarily come here? Oh yeah, and not just workers, anthropologists, scientists, there's even permanent people. Now Rosie was shocked. Permanent? You mean they live here? Underground, maybe not city size, but there's communities that live in old mine workings. Mining? She snorted. Is there any hunk of forsaken rock in the galaxy that someone doesn't want to mine? Afraid not, Rosie. They had finished the circuit and were walking alongside the river when the bid generator began to blink. Chubb opened it up and they saw the item they were here for was about to be auctioned. Tour over, we'd better get back. No need, Jet. Chubb looked at the time. Anyway, it's almost time for dinner. We just ate? Rosie protested. Chubb looked at her as he patted his belly. And had a long walk to burn it off. We can go back to the cafe. We don't have to be there, we can watch it all on the generator. They sat in the cafe again. Chubb with another meal, Jet and Rosie with just drinks, watching the CGI auctioneer as he began to register bids. Jet looked up at Chubb. What's a Duesenberg? That's a Duesenberg. Chubb pointed to the image displayed on the generator. One of the rarest automobiles anywhere in the systems. Okay, Jet shrugged. I get the rare, they find these things and bring them here for auction, but why would anybody want to own one? People collect things, some people collect autos, and some people collect the rarest of them. This one was bought by a king, Alphonse XIII. When he was overthrown and exiled, he took this auto into exile with him, then it disappeared. It's not only rare, it's complete, it's got pedigree and a mystery thrown in. Collectors will pay over the odds for history like that. Rosie looked uninterested. If he was a king, you'd think he could have afforded one with all its bits inside. She pointed to the front. People back then thought external pipework looked good? So if it's complete, where's the rest of the top? It's a convertible, Rosie. You mean it's open to the elements and anything that smacks into their faces? Chubb smiled. What about the bare wheels? Chubb nodded. The wheel covers? Fenders, Rosie, and that's how they were. I think they called them pram guards. They don't guard much, the wheels are completely exposed. It's downright dangerous, people could fall against them and be hurt, and look at the front, there's no pedestrian crumple zone, just a great hunk of shiny metal to smash into, and what are they? Chubb was getting just a little annoyed at how she, and Jet in his silence, were picking the vehicle apart. I'm sure you can guess what headlights are for, Rosie. Yes, I did, but there's no place for the photon generator. They didn't have them then, they had bulbs, an electrical current heated a filament to create light. Jet was shaking his head. I read somewhere that hundreds of thousands of people died because of automobiles, and I guess we can all see why now. So it's this and... Chubb checked the bid information. And a crate of parts, spares, and accessories? Jet looked around the arena. I don't see any crates, where is that? Only the vehicles that can be moved are brought here. What can is stored? There's a pickup address in a pop-up window announced the auction had begun. They watched in amazement as the bids began register, and suddenly the bid count became a blur. The bid soared through high, romped past huge, and topped enormous. When the numbers slowed and eventually stopped, they were all stunned. They were even more shocked when another pop-up window announced yours is the highest bid. Dumbstruck, they looked at each other, wordless, until Jet managed to clear his throat and speak. What's our carrier's insurance limit? Still in a state of disbelief, they drove the tractor out of the city to the derelict airport and to a hangar where a big man behind a small desk confronted them. You picking something up? He said gruffly. Jet was tempted to ask for whatever other reason would they be in the collection office. Instead, he pushed the bid generator across the surface between them. The man looked at it and his attitude changed, but rather than for the more pleasant, it seemed more hostile. It'll take time, he snapped. For all the man's threatening manner, Chubb was unfazed. What if we haven't got time? Then you leave without it. How long? Rosie said, putting on her best charm. It usually had men melt, but it had no effect this time. You're not the only ones picking stuff up. I don't imagine we are, but it would be nice to have at least an idea when we need to come back. I'll send a message. He snarled as he pushed the generator back towards them. Wonder what he had for breakfast to put him in such a good mood? Rosie said once they were outside again. Who cares, we'll go back and get the auto instead. Chubb, you were the one who said get the crate first. Yeah, I thought it would balance the tractor better, but at least we won't have to just stand around here. They drove back to the arena in silence, more disenchanted now than stunned as when had driven out, so they began to look around the empty roads. It's sad, said Rosie. Thinking that this was once a thriving city? Probably, muttered Chubb. But the sooner we're gone and got this delivered, the happier I'll be. They pulled the tractor in front of the auto and very, very carefully hitched up the winch, and even more carefully winched the vehicle up onto the cargo tray. Once secured, with more clamps and more air cushions than necessary, they elevated the sides, pulled over the tonneau. Now the auto was on the tractor bed. The immensity of what they had become responsible for came over them. They were accountable for an equivalent pile of credits so huge that they could not even visualize it. Rosie said what they all were thinking. I think we need to get back and get this off our hands as soon as possible. They drove back to the spaceport and once more were inside the office, but the man wasn't. Jet and Rosie hoped he had been replaced, but the hope was short-lived as eventually he came out and stood behind the counter. Yes, he said, as if they hadn't been stood in exactly the same place just a short while before. The crate. said Chubb belligerently. The man grinned stupidly. Which crate? Jet wordlessly pushed the bid generator towards him a second time. He looked at it. It's a big place, it could take a while. Jet was seething. You said that before? Oh, that crate? The man acted surprised. Oh yeah, I had that one brought up for you already. You got a truck? Yes, we have. Jet and Rosie went to the front of the hangar while Chubb brought the tractor around. Waiting was a crate with a number stenciled on its side that corresponded to the auto their client had won. Looks like there could be enough parts in that to build another auto, observed Rosie. Jet thought the same and was trying to work out how the container would fit onto the tractor bed with the auto. I think for the price paid it should have enough to build another 100. A buggy drove up and a man got off. You got the bid generator, he said. Chubb handed it to him. Jet felt something about the buggy driver was familiar. Maybe it was the rude attitude everyone on the planet seemed to have? This is the one, the man said, telling them what they already had assumed. He tapped a button beside his ear without taking his eyes off Chubb. Bring the crane over to section 32. He got back into the buggy. The crane is on its way, he'll sign you off. Without saying anything more, he drove back into the hangar. The crane arrived, and with as few words as possible the operator loaded the crate onto the tractor. He handed Chubb a tablet. Put in your bid acceptance code number. Chubb looked at it. Accepted and received in good condition? Chubb said, reading the disclaimer. It's a sealed crate, how do we know it's in good condition? The man looked uninterested. Do you want it or not? Chubb looked at Rosie and Jet. They said nothing, so Chubb entered the code. By the time they got back to the Silver Flyer they had enough of soot and IV, but the planet had not finished with them. They had the tractor and its load in the cargo bay when a team of soldiers arrived. One, a burly fellow with a badge displaying customs on his shoulder, walked up to them and looked straight into Jet's eyes. You are the pilot? Actually I am, said Rosie. By now Jet was fed up with everyone's surly attitude, and he didn't feel like being cooperative. Actually we all are. He looked at Chubb with a look that said, don't argue the point. The customs officer spoke again. And the owner of this spacecraft is? We all are. Chubb didn't finish the sentence as it came to him that ownership of the Silver Flyer had always been in dispute. The customs officer didn't seem to care. We have reason to believe that you have contraband goods on the ship? That's ridiculous, said Rosie, almost laughing, to their side. The customs officer turned his head slowly, and almost without letting Jet out of his sight he looked at her. Then you won't mind us checking? Go ahead, she said tauntingly, just make it quick so we can leave this place. Jet wasn't so sure they should let the customs officer have a look. After all, they had no idea what was in the crate, or for that matter what was, or was not contraband. The customs officer looked back at Jet expectantly as he spoke back to his men. You heard the lady, open it up. Two others moved forward with crowbars, climbed onto the tractor and began to pull a side off the crate. They were less than careful and soon had it open. Jet didn't know what they were supposed to have done wrong, but whatever it was, he was already annoyed by everyone they encountered being so ill-tempered. Is this going to take long? That depends on how quickly we find what we are looking for. Find what you are looking for. Put that way it sounds like you already know we have something to hide. The man didn't reply. So if you don't find what you expect, you intend to empty the container? If that's what it takes. The customs officer looked over at the auto. We may have to strip everything, so maybe it would help us both if you were to tell us where you have hidden it. Jet looked at the car, and in his mind he saw them delivering a pile of parts to the client. There is no way you are going to touch that with a crowbar? Jet said as threateningly as he dared. Maybe you need reminding that on this planet I have the authority to do whatever I want to. Jet was about to snap a reply when one of the soldiers examining the crate called out. It's here? Jet turned towards the man in disbelief. The customs officer smiled at him in a satisfied way, and held up his arm as a small package was handed down. He opened a corner and poured a tiny amount of blue powder into his palm. Information received tells me that these are beryllium crystals, am I correct? Jet was dumbfounded. He had no idea, but if any of them could recognize it, it would be Chubb. Is that beryllium? Chubb shook his head. How should I know? It didn't matter what either of them thought the substance was. Customs officer was convinced. He looked back at the man beside the crate. Any more? Yes, heaps. The customs officer looked at Jet. You were preparing to leave Sudden IV. It wasn't a question. We still are. Then you admit you were going to leave with this undeclared quantity of beryllium crystals. Is that your intention? No, it wasn't our intention. We didn't know it was there. Jet looked at Rosie and Chubb nervously. As far as we know, we were taking only what has been declared on the manifest. We don't know anything about any crystals. Nonetheless, they are here. The customs officer said smugly. You will be aware that the exportation of beryllium crystals is regulated and restricted. Any exportation must be done only by those authorized and only through the approved process. Jet was trying to think through the consequences, but denial was a good place to begin. I've already said it's not ours. Then why do you have them? Jet had no idea other than, it's not ours. Then how do you explain being caught in the act of stealing an illegal substance? It's not us. Interjected Rosie. You should be looking for whoever put it there. I believe that's you. No, not us. The evidence proves otherwise, and information received implicates you. Jet's mouth opened in shock. Somebody told you we had it? We are acting on information, yes. Who told you? You don't actually expect me to tell you of our source? Whoever it is, they're lying. We were asked only to pick up what was on the manifest. You will have your opportunity to tell that to the tribunal, but it won't make any difference. We have enough evidence to implicate you and send you to a penal colony for a long time. That isn't going to happen. Chubb's voice sounded uncompromising, and they turned to see him holding a ray gun. Chubb, gasped Rosie. What are you doing? I'm avoiding us going to jail. He stepped where he could see all the soldiers. The last thing I want is for anybody to get hurt, but we're not going down for somebody else's heist. Chubb, put down the pistol. We can prove it's not ours, Rosie pleaded. No, we can't, Rosie. Whoever set this up intended us getting caught. They wouldn't go to all that trouble without making sure it would stick. Now you go and get the flyer ready. We're leaving. Rosie looked anxiously at Jet. Do as he says, he said. You won't get away with running, the customs officer said. Wherever you go, the militia will find you. Neither will be clear our names stuck in some penal colony. Jet answered. Now, being as you guys are so interested in the crystals, you can have them, but we are leaving. Chubb looked at the men against the container. You heard him, get them out and off. The customs officer nodded to them. You realize this is as good as a confession? What I realize is that we've been set up, said Jet. And we intend to find out by who. There is nowhere you can hide from the militia. We don't intend hiding. We intend to find out who wants us locked up. The thought came to Jet that that could be a lot of people. Come on, hurry it up, said Chubb as they heard the engines run up on the Starship. We want it all off, but we're not going to hang around while you take your time. Good idea, Chubb, said Jet, clambering up to the cab of the tractor. It'll save time if you have the whole crate. The men scrambled off as the hoist began to move. Leaving Chubb in the cargo bay with the ray gun still pointing at the soldiers, Jet went to go to the command deck. You won't get far, he heard the customs officer call to him just before the hold door locked shut. Go, he said urgently to Rosie as he entered. She began to lift off as she spoke. Jet, this is a mistake? I know, but we don't have any choice. Soon Sudden IV was falling behind them. Anybody following? Not that I can see, Jet, said Chubb. What about detection? They probably haven't had time to start a search. Jet nodded. We need to lose the flyer. We'll get Jack to meet us with the Tanatalia, and then find out what's going on. They arrived at the asteroid belt and were surprised to find the Tanatalia already waiting. I didn't expect you to be here so soon, said Jet as they boarded the Tanatalia. I wasn't at the base, he replied. I was looking for you. Jet looked at him with a puzzled expression. What for? Indigo contacted me, told me there's been a detain on arrival warrant issued for the flyer. Now he looked puzzled. You any idea why the militia would do that? Yeah, Jet took in a deep breath. We were set up. The auction was a cover to smuggle out beryllium. Mad Jack let out a low whistle. Beryllium. That explains it. Filthy stuff. Jack looked at Jet. I assume you didn't know? Of course we didn't. Jet said sharply. No, but I gotta ask. Jet nodded. Somebody wants us out the way and our reputation's ruined? He heard Rosie from behind. We have a reputation, I suppose we do now? Jack gave her a fleeting look. Why say that? Maybe you were just meant to be the unknowing mule. The authorities were tipped off. Jack began to rub his chin. How much beryllium? A lot, said Chubb. Jet looked at him. We don't know for sure, we dumped it before we left. You're certain it was beryllium? Chubb looked at Jet and Rosie. It looked like it. Jack was shaking his head. That don't make sense. Getting rid of you is one thing, but whoever dobbied you to customs must have known they'd lose the crystals. Why do it when it's gonna cost a lot of credits? Jet didn't know. I mean, continued Jack, smiling. You may be a pain in the arse, and for sure you have enemies, but hey, how much is it worth to remove you? Jet wasn't so sure it was amusing, but it did give him one thought. Which of those people would have enough credits to bid for the Duesenberg? Chubb was first to answer. Benedict? But Rosie was quick to disagree. He's a lot of things, but I've never seen anything that would make me think he's into narcotics. Me neither, Rosie, but he's tried to murder us. If he can sanction killing, what's to stop him getting into drugs? I know that, Jet, she agreed, but I just can't believe you would. It's a credit to you, Rosie, that you think that, said Chubb. But the fact is that he paid a fortune for that auto, and it could have been confiscated. Hey, in that case, is it ours now? We can't sell it, Chubb, if that's what you're thinking. Ah, how do we do it without getting caught? B, who'll have the credit, other than Benedict again, and C, if we did, it would be a sign of guilt. We have to return it to him. Give it back to him, stuttered Jet, after he very nearly succeeded in getting us sent to a penal colony for life. They arrived at the Galaxy Laby, left the Tanatalia parked off in space, and caught a shuttle onto the station. As they had done too often before they split up, Chubb to find his underworld friends, Mad Jack to the maintenance area for rest and recreation, and to see if he could find anything out. Jet went to look for Indigo, and Rosie for James, though she seemed less than eager to find him. Jet, tell me it's not true? Indigo looked at him as seriously as Jet had ever been looked at. It's true that they were there, assuming they actually were crystals, but I swear we didn't know. We were set up. Indigo seemed slightly relieved. Jet, I don't care what you, or anybody for that matter, does for relaxation, but there are limits. Beryllium is addictive, frighteningly addictive. Jet was getting annoyed that even his friends seemed ready to believe he was guilty. He tried not to show it. I know, I haven't touched the stuff. The Galactic Militia come down hard on suppliers. If you're lying? Yeah, I know. Jet said sharply. If I spoil your setup, Jet knew he was crossing the line and stepped back. Indigo, I don't know what more I can do to convince you. I'm innocent. We're innocent, and we came here for you help to prove that. But if you feel we're implicating you, then I'm sorry, we'll leave. Indigo relaxed a little. Jet, look at it from my side. I've got things set up real sweet, and I don't want it changed. We're not going to. But innocent or not, you were caught red-handed. Indigo put his hand around Jet's shoulder. You're my friend, but have to be careful. If you were into drugs, you would be betraying that friendship. I don't want to betray you, and I haven't. We were set up. Whoever bid for that vehicle set us up. Indigo looked at him. By that you mean Benedict? I think so. Indigo gave Jet a look that indicated he knew who it was. So it was him? I don't know. All I know is that he has a big collection of antiques. Jet was convinced. I didn't know that, but it fits. Problem is, how do we prove it was him? Indigo wasn't so eager. Just because he has antiques doesn't make him a drug trafficker? No, but it's a perfect way to move stuff around. And an obvious one. I'm sure he's at the top of the pyramid. He has to be. No, it isn't, and if he was, he will bring in a team of lawyers that would prove it was all your idea and he was fooled into trusting you, but it's not that, it's just he has nothing to gain. To gain, he gets rid of me? Indigo looked at him as a smile broke over his face. You seriously believe that you are that important to him? Yes, he's tried to kill me. Suddenly Jet wasn't so confident. Jet, I have no doubt that you annoy him and he'd be the first person to celebrate your being sent down for life, but do you imagine the last thing he thinks every night before he goes to sleep is how to get you? Being unimportant was something Jet had never thought of. Maybe not, but doesn't stop him putting out contracts on my life. When you are as powerful and unscrupulous as he is, killing people is a legitimate way to clear the path for a takeover. Indigo was grinning now. So being as you are not the last and first thing he thinks of, why would he drag himself into drugs? He's got more credits than most financial. Come to think of it, he does own a bank. No, I think he has been as much betrayed as you have. Jet was not the last to arrive. Rosie was alone and already had a coffee in her hand. Find out anything? He asked as he sat beside her. Nothing. James isn't here. Nobody seems to know where's his, or how long before he's back. So official channels are a blank right now. What did Indigo have to say? Not much. He doesn't think it's Benedict. Well, he thinks it was Benedict who was the bidder, but that he was a victim too. I still think he's prime candidate. I did find out one thing, the Coryllium is Benedict's, or one of his companies. Jet raised his bushy eyebrows in anticipation. Apparently he owns Petropharma. It's a pharmaceutical company contracted to half the sanatoriums in the systems. Among other things, they produce Coryllium on the planet. Is that so? Jet nodded. So he could get any amount of the stuff to plant? Yes, and if he did, and when it was discovered, he could claim it was stolen and have it returned. It's a no-loss situation. Then he's still got to be number one no matter what Indigo thinks. Mad Jack came through the entrance and went to the counter. Jet and Rosie waited until he came and sat with them. How'd you go? He said. Benedict has a plant making Coryllium on Sudden IV. Jet said with satisfaction. Has he now? Couldn't get much myself. Did find out that a company called Temp Solutions recently advertised for staff to go there. Jet waited for more, but it didn't come. Instead, Chubb did. Temp Solutions, did you say? Jack looked up at him. I heard the same, and also that Temp Solutions is owned by Paradise Employment. He turned and went to the counter for a drink, leaving the others staring after him. Chubb said nothing more, so Jet turned back to Jack. You think there may be a connection? Who knows, but maybe. They have the auctions randomly, so they probably don't have more than a few regular staff. Every time there's an auction, they could employ people, go get it organized, and close it down? Jack nodded. Sounds like a perfect setup to smuggle stuff in and out. I don't think so, Jack, cautioned Rosie. Security would assume the same thing. Chubb came back and carried on as if he hadn't stopped. Paradise Employment is owned by another company, and another company owns that. You get the idea? Anyway, according to my contacts, if you could eventually find out who owns what, you would get to one called Copperhead. And guess who is on the board of Copperhead? Benedict, said Jet with a smirk. Nope. Jet's look of satisfaction disappeared. Then who? The devil himself? Jet was stunned, Rosie gasped, and Mad Jack grunted what could have been a laugh. Chubb waited while his news sank in. It could be that we've had the wrong man all the time? Jet didn't like the sound of that chain of implications. Benedict was unscrupulous, but a master criminal like the devil was something entirely different. You're sure? Of course not. The militia can't work their way through, so there's no chance we can make a link, but it's common knowledge that whatever happens, the devil get his cut. So he's probably not our smuggler, said Rosie. Him personally? No possibility at all. In fact, word is that he doesn't want anything to do with drugs, but if you want to, and you turn a credit, he wants his commission, and that's for whatever you're doing. They all felt at a dead end, except Rosie. Then our only lead is Temp Solutions. Chubb nodded. I think I may be able to find out a bit more. They all looked at her. It's a long shot, but when I worked for Benedict, the first had to contact various of his companies. I don't know if he owns Temp Solutions, but if not, there's a good chance he would have had dealings with it. If he has, he'll have an account and I may be able to get in. Chubb looked doubtful. Will that help us? I don't know, but what else can we do? She's right, Chubb, said Jet. It's all we've got to go on, but how will you get in? It's impossible to know the key passwords to all of his companies, so head office, and the units that bridged the gaps, had a separate master pass that allowed partial entry. If I can get even partly into Temp Solutions, maybe I can access staff records. Databases like that shouldn't be too secure. Maybe I can get a list of who went. Maybe if we knew it could tell us something. Jet looked surprised. You still have access? Actually no, but James has, and he let me in once to prove he could. Jet wasn't sure he wanted to be grateful to James, but he was. Rosie left them and went to a bank of information terminals on a wall close by. As she did, Jack stood. Anybody want another drink? Jet shook his head and Chubb did the same. But as Chubb looked at Jack, he saw past him that the bartender was speaking into his personal communicator. The way the man was looking at Jet made Chubb uneasy. Jack had just returned from yet another refill when Rosie came back looking worried. No luck, she said. Temp Solutions is about the biggest work agency on the station. I couldn't get into staff records, but even if I had, there's too many people to check out. Jet was just about to say it was worth a try, when she spoke again. Then it occurred to me that anybody going to Sutton IV would need bronchial treatment. So I checked Petropharma, and there it was. Treatments are issued through Temp Solutions' medical insurance arm. Jet had begun to laugh. What's funny? Nothing, it's just a long shot that I wouldn't have thought worth trying. Well, it was, because Benedict is so much a stickler for making sure he's covered that Petropharma requires a name to the doses. That's all it is, but I got the names of people who Temp Solutions send to Sutton IV. There are around 60, mostly they are repeats, but there were 3 single issues. For the last batch out, she went quiet for a moment. All 3 were for the same after-name, Boyd. She looked about their blank faces. Don't you guys remember? On Beta Tila IV? You. The man that died was Pitre Boyd. He was one of 4 brothers. They're all members of the Black Light. Immediately Jet remembered where he had seen the face at the airport before. If Rosie was about to say more they didn't know as Chubb abruptly interrupted her. Have you guys noticed there's nobody walking by outside? They hadn't, but now they looked and saw that there were no shoppers in the mall. They watched for a few moments in the hope that somebody would pass by, but no one did. Jet looked around and back towards the rear of the cafe. The man behind the counter was nowhere to be seen either. The back door, he said, standing and looking at Rosie. You and Jack get back to the ship, you too, Chubb. Split up, you'll stand a better chance. Chubb understood, but Rosie didn't. "What are you going to do, Jet?" she said anxiously. "I'll lead them off." "Jet, she began before Chubb grabbed her arm firmly. "Jet knows what he's doing, he'll be quicker alone," he said uncompromisingly. Jet smiled reassuringly. "I don't know how much time I can give you, don't waste it." Reluctantly, Rosie let Chubb herd her behind the counter. Jet looked around. It was possible he was being observed. He'd know soon enough as he carefully pulled a piece of fishing net from a display in the window. He waited, hoping its disappearance hadn't been noticed. Steeling himself, he waited to give the others chance to get away. He didn't know how long he delayed, but it had been for as long as he dared before he casually sauntered out into the mall. He tried to be casual, but that was difficult considering he held a bunched-up roll of blue net in his arms. To the left and right, the mezzanine floor was deserted, as was the level across the mall. That wasn't reassuring. Below on the ground floor, he couldn't see anybody either. He was glad of that, he hoped. Suddenly, everything changed as militia stormed out of the adjacent shops. As they did, Jet threw the net over the rail and hooked the gill traps around a bench support. It took longer than he had planned, and the soldiers had got closer than he wanted, but bulky uniforms, sniper jackets, and tool belts hindered them, so he was up and over the banister before they could grab him. He fell, twisting as he did so that he could reach out and grab the net. His fingers slid over as he desperately tried to stab them into the holes, and when he did, the pain was excruciating. The net had seemed thick when he had thought of the idea, but now it seemed they were like the wires of a cheese cutter. But though he couldn't hold on, he did long enough to slow his fall. Ignoring the pain, he dug again and held. Now he felt his arms were dislocating as his weight was brought to an abrupt stop. He hadn't time to worry about what damage he had done as he scrabbled down the net, but he didn't seem to be moving, and looking up he saw many hands were hauling the net in. Jet looked down. It was further than he hoped, but not too far, so he let go and fell hard on the ground. Scrambling to his feet, he looked over to the stairs. Militia was running down. He looked towards the exit. It was clear, and in a sprint he ran for it. He almost got there, but he slowed as militia appeared outside. They were unhurried and seemed to saunter into his way of escape. As he slowed, the men behind gained. To his sides there was no escape. Jet's run slowed more until he stopped. There was no way out, so he raised his hands. Chubb threw open the service entry door into a corridor. Both ways he looked were militia with raised weapons. He stopped and tried to back off, but Rosie and Jack stumbled into him. In a tight bunch, they struggled to turn, only to see more militia entering the cafe. Jet looked up as he heard the bolt slide and the door opened. James Rackham faced him. He turned his head to the militiaman by his side. "I'll be okay," he said as he entered. The door shut behind him, and sound of the bolts slamming it locked filled the tiny room. James looked at Jet. "I thought we had an agreement." "I saw it more as an ultimatum. You do a job for me now and again, and I do what I can to keep the militia at bay. That was what we agreed, but there are limits, you know. I was framed. I wonder how many times that's been claimed before." Jet shrugged. "Think what you like, but it's true." "Drugs, Jet? I don't know, but murder could be less problematic." "I guess they thought the same." "They? Who set me up?" "And they are?" "3 brothers." "For what reason?" "I was responsible for the 4th brother's death." "Murder?" "Self-defense." "Where is the vehicle?" "The what?" "Oh, that's safe." "Is it stolen?" "I don't know, you tell me." "I mean, are you going hand it over?" "You mean to save the 3 galaxies paying up?" "At the moment it's classified as missing. I should hate to see them add Grand Theft Auto to what you were already facing." "It's insured for a lot, isn't it?" "More than you or I can earn in a good long while." "I bet Benedict's really pissed off." "Very much." Jet began to laugh, and after a few moments a smile creased James's face. "He's got his crystals back." "Yes. And he'll get the value from you? If the vehicle is not found, 3 galaxies will pay out, but he doesn't want the money. Money isn't important to a man like him, but he wants the car. It's unique. It's safe. He'll be glad to hear that. Jet tried not to overplay his situation. Can we do a deal? A deal? Should I point out that you are certain to go to a penal colony? I was hoping not. And how do you intend to avoid it? Can we make a deal? You have nothing to bargain with. The vehicle? Why should I want to do a deal? The militia will eventually find your Starship. The flyer is empty. Jet could see the surprise on James's face. I could call your bluff and wait till the ship is found? True, but by then you will have paid Benedict. Probably, but he will be ready to buy it back off us. But the 3 Galaxies Insurance Alliance won't do that, will they? They will have settled the claim, so they will put it up for auction again, and who knows, they may get more, considerably more. 3 Galaxies would see that as a bonus. Or they could get less. Doubtful, but possible. So considering the safe return of the auto, maybe Benedict would be prepared to drop all charges? It wasn't him who caught you with the crystals. No, but the authorities on Sudden IV won't want to make problems that could hurt whatever economy they have. Possibly not. And if Benedict was to say, maybe, that I was authorized to take them and somebody forgot to complete the paperwork? You can't seriously think the militia will accept that? The crystals never left the planet, they never came under the militia's jurisdiction. I'm sure his lawyers could point that out. They would have a harder time arguing that you threatened the militia with a weapon, and evaded arrest. I didn't threaten the militia, it was local customs, and as an innocent man, which I am, I could be excused for not wanting to be arrested for a crime I didn't commit. Innocent men don't run? As I said, we were set up, maybe we thought we were being mugged. Nobody would believe that. It doesn't matter if anyone believes, what matters is if that's what the lawyers prove happened. You want me to tell him to drop all charges and smooth your release? All of our releases. He gets the auto back? As it was bid for. James nodded as he turned a little and rapped his knuckles on the door. The bolts slid open again. The freighter slowed and gently coasted into the asteroid belt. Sir, we are at the coordinates? Benedict came beside the pilot and looked out of the screen into the darkness of space. Rocks large and small slid slowly by, until in front of the spaceship was the Duesenberg. It hung in space, leisurely turning around as if on a showroom plinth.